darker here. I want to identify the highest highlight, right? In my subject, there's this thin area here, which is the highest highlight, right? But it's just very small. So the rest here needs to be, so what I can do, I can block in this pretty much everywhere, right? Because I don't want to draw around a small little area of highlights because it's going to be too clunky, right? So if I had to do around here, I'm going to create some marks that are going to be difficult to manage, right? So but I now darken all of this. Then I'm going to take my eraser and I go back there little by little like this with softening up the contrast, making a little bit of a lighter value there. That's going to be the highest highlight, but only there, not the whole strip as I had before. Then I can now see, because I darken this, now all of this feels too light because now they're closer tonally, right? And I need to create a little bit more of evident tonal distance, right? Tonal range here. So it's going to be darker, right? This is the same thing. This is light, but it's not going to be as light as here, for example, or here where I have a highlight, where I have the white. So I leave that white. This is light, but it's not white, right? This is what I call the relative highlight, right? So relatively to these other values, that's the highlight, right? And this is not even as light as that, so I need to push this down a little bit. But then I need to consider the absolute highlight, and the absolute highlight is going to be where I see a squint. I see this white popping up like here, for example, right? Of course, you cannot see it because again, but all here, right? There's a white here. So those are the spaces that I leave white. Here now is light, but not as light as that. So what I can do, actually this area here is very light. So what I'm gonna do here is block this in like this, with a value like this, right? Overall. Then I'm going to lift, as I did for this part in here, that looks very light, right? So again, consider this, consider finding the absolute highlight, right, in a few spots here, right, here, right, and then the relative highlights, differentiate them from the relative highlights. So in the case in here, yeah, that is the relative highlight, but is not the absolute highlight, right? So when I find a highlight, and I think it's a highlight, I'm thinking, okay, is that as white as the maximum highlight? And I'll compare the two and say no, or yes, or maybe, right? That's how I maintain the tonal relationships. And that's why by doing this, I don't copy values independently from the each other, right? And from the planes that they create them, right? Because the values are the results of the exposure of the form to the light, and depending on how distance you have between the object and the light and the direction of the light toward the form, you're going to have different values. So if the light is perpendicular and the closest to the form, that's where you have the highlight. If the light is a little bit more distant and maybe a little bit more at an angle, then you're going to have a different light, right? Different value. Now here, we can now go back here. This is going to be dark, right? Another thing that you want to consider is the red here, this dark red here. You see how it changes the temperature, right? And that is the signal that you're moving from light mass to form shadow. When the color gets grayer and darker, but mostly when it changes chroma, right, and temperature, meaning lower chroma shift in temperature, then you are in the shadow mass. Now this is going to be darker here, and this comes down. I can block it in all like this right here, or like this, because it's all in the shadow mass. All of this is shadow mass, so I can do this here too, keep it very dark, right, like this. It's going to be a fuzzy area here. Fuzzy area here, like this, right? Here, darker. That's going to be darker also, right? Very dark. This is very dark. So here, I can have this a little bit darker here, like this, right? But down here, because this is really, really deep, I need to use eventually the graphite. I could also use black color pencil, but the black color pencil is so strong that it creates I prefer to use the graphite. It's just more delicate and more gradual. So what I'm gonna do